Introducing Nervous System Dysregulation. Nervous System Dysregulation Series, Part 1, An Introduction. In the past 10 years, some psychobiologic terminology has sprinkled its way into the conversations of the modern world. I make the point of saying the modern world because I'm a student of Indigenous thought. I live my life according to the principles of Hawaiian Indigenous thought, and I practice therapy, which is based on those ideas of living but adjusted for effectiveness for the modern mind in the modern world. Through this other perspective, I see differently, in comparison to most people, regarding nervous system dysregulation. I have come to see it as a modern world symptom. Nervous system dysregulation, and I'm sure it will have an acronym assigned in no time, NSD, so let's start the trend. These words have found their way into our vernacular and, like all buzzwords, are overused and placed into contexts which don't truly take into account the history of the word nor the depth and breadth of what it encompasses. However, this is only the beginning of the usage of this term in the wider population. Just like all buzzwords, people get tired of them. When they're no longer buzzy and useful, especially if people want to speak of the depth of their meanings. The time will come where enough people will understand the true meaning of this term and in which company it must sit in our conversations. For myself, I finally have language. I have words which other people will actually listen to now, even if they don't understand them as fully as I do or with the same perspective. I feel a little closer than before to my life experience being comprehended. My childhood was plagued with nervous system dysregulation. Back then, though, there were no words for it. My one parent wasn't confronted about his behaviour, which caused my complete dysregulation because no one truly knew how to communicate what was happening. And later in my adulthood, I've recognised how each member of my family played and still plays the same dysregulation game as my father did. Did you know that when a thing doesn't have a label, it's incredibly difficult for a human to even notice it, despite it being glaringly obvious via bodily sensation? When I was a child, even halfway through my adulthood, I really did think fear and stress was normal. I've found out in the past decade how it's common and not at all normal, and definitely not in line with what is natural. And what's more, it's modern and not indigenous, from without rather than found from within, and totally out of balance and unhealthy, and the cause of so many modern day illnesses and symptoms. Very interesting to my mind is the symptoms have been labelled for over 100 years, so they are real to people. The cause is now looking like being labelled as nervous system dysregulation. However, in my understanding, as I've desperately needed to solve my own symptoms, I've discovered NSD is actually an intermediary symptom and not the original cause. Watch out for more on this topic in the mainstream science as time goes on. Nervous system dysregulation as a topic is an extremely important one to me. This is due to the fact that even though I did not know what was wrong with me or what the cause was, I've meandered my way through the last 20 years of my life without words for what I was doing and have solved a problem no one would or could admit that I had. Where there is a will, there is a way, at least with me there is. Let me explain in a little more detail. Picture it. It's 2008. I'm around 35 years old. I've just bought a second property, one to live in with my partner. I'm mortgaged to the hilt while carrying the entire financial burden of it all. My partner was studying to become a nurse, on my dollar, and then life crashed down. I had devoted everything I had, money, time, energy, thought, creativity, the lot, to creating this life for us. Then one day, it's over. What I'd created had no purpose anymore. I saw it fall down like an invisible tower before me. I looked around at the house full of furniture and homewares. Not one bit of it made any sense anymore. After spending 3 months debriefing through howls, tears of pain and complete disbelief, I sat in silence. I sat alone at the corner of a very large, solid and very square dining table. Some kind of junk food in front of me. I knew I didn't have the energy to build all this again. And besides, being depleted, I just didn't want to keep doing life the way I was. Not anymore. I didn't want another 2/3 of the same. I didn't want to stay if I had to do that. I got creative with what I thought were my last bits of energy. I'll figure it out. That thing I don't understand. I'll find it, I'll fix it, all of it, I told myself. Then I looked upward toward a feeling of myself that I could not lie to or break a promise with if I'd made one. With tears flowing down my cheeks, I felt broken, and with all of what I still had left, I made a vow. Just tell me what to do. Please, I'll go anywhere, I'll do anything, I'll give it all up. I looked around the room as if to point to all of my worldly stuff. I just want to feel happiness, joy, love. I know I'm supposed to feel it, and I can't. I'll do what you tell me, just one thing at a time, and I'll do it. Well, that was the beginning. Almost 20 years later, I can tell you, all the worldly things have gone bit by bit. I had to let it all go many times over after discovering my emotional attachments. All my egoic thoughts and beliefs, they had to go too. God's level of truth has been embraced, and with it I have God's love to support me. I have had to almost die a few times, and the last hit was to leave my family behind, emotionally anyway. They still live around me, yet I'm not attached or involved. I am only me, here on the planet now. Yet I'm the wealthiest woman I could ever be. After almost dying 3 years ago, I am stronger and more myself than I have ever been. My nervous system has been put through the ringer a gazillion times, and on the other side of all the loss is the gain of something so much more important. Today I stand before you, likely I'm sitting at the cafe though, with a nervous system which has been reset. I have to admit, I did it a really hard way. A way I don't believe is necessary for everyone. I've also developed a method to move through more swiftly and kindly, and I help others do this now in therapy sessions. I am no longer dysregulated. I am no longer programmed to be the regulation mechanism for others, but I'm well trained to do this when needed, as humbly asked for. Via my journey to understand, to know, to fix, which I thought would last a year, or as long as the money lasted, 18 years later I'm healed and I understand, I know, and I can teach and guide the same healing. And the journey has now lasted as long as the money thrown my way. One's nervous system is the most precious earthbound aspect of self we could ever understand to have. We all have one. If you become dysregulated, you are being propelled out of a natural state of homeostasis and into a world of hurt. We have this new vocabulary entering into our vernacular because overall being dysregulated has become commonplace. We have such a large percentage of people having symptoms of dysregulation that the tiny percentage that used to exist and were called nuts, kooky or asymptomatic cannot be considered the same way anymore. We are now at a midway point in our evolution of the modern human. One day, there will be so much nervous system dysregulation that people will want to know, just like I did, how to solve it for good and live in a way which does not invite it back. Until then, as demand increases, I shall continue to educate and therapize those who turn up to learn about their spiritual literacy as the best way to de-trigger themselves and maintain regulation with ease. The vagus nerve is a massive highway in one's autonomic nervous system. It runs from your brain down into your organs, and from your organs, all of them, up to your brain. The speed and dedication is far more astute from the organs of the body up to the brain. The environments felt by your body are instantly feeding back to your brain. This is so your body chemistry can be adjusted according to your environment. Your body has the senses, your brain is the processor, and your body must adjust to what it comes to understand is the new context it must now live in. This has so many implications for how we live our lives. I'll mention the ones which I've seen to be important to me and my clients. When an environment becomes threatening, the brain instantly creates a state in the body which will allow for either fighting off the attacks, retreating and hiding from the attacker, running away from the attacker, or fawning, so that the attacker might stop its attacking. These are biologically designed options for dealing with threats. Modern world humans now have a problem with this system. We do not yet protect from environments which allow for felt attacks. We are yet to put our collective foot down, and we are left with physically felt states in our bodies which can and do trigger over and over again. Without an indigenous from within approach to living, the modern person does feel threatened by their environments, and they do not know how to alter or affect the state in their bodies while in the midst of relating with other people. This leads to a plethora of solutions, also known as addictions. If we take the blame and shame away from the language of addiction, which comes from observing and judging the outcomes of addictive behaviour, we can see why a person is led into addiction in the first place. Having a strict solution for a particular problem without having conscious choice in the moment means you have a subconscious solution / addiction. When a person needs a drink and takes one, what are they doing to the environment of their body? What feedback is being given to their brain? They're actioning a change. A drunk person no longer needs a drink. Once even mildly drunk, they're in a physical state where their body informs the brain all is good now. The state which was perceived to be dangerous cannot be felt any longer. Whether you need a hug from a lover, a cigarette, to punch something, to go for a run, yell until release, put someone else down, etc., these are all state-changing activities. Sometimes the danger state is so traumatic, it is all forgotten behind the new state of pleasure. The perception of the pleasure state is seen positively regardless of any negative effects on others. Others, however, may judge these addictions to state change due to how they perceive their effect. Some are healthy, some are not, but they all give a person agency to change the state in their body. They also give a person an opportunity to observe their own challenge of being triggered. The first implication I mentioned is called state change through addictions. Another effect of modern society on its population via their vagus nerve is this phenomenon which is now being called running. It's not new. People have been doing it for a very long time now. It's very common in the modern world, and it is to the detriment of community cohesion. Being a runner is essentially changing the environment to get away from the triggers. Running is now being taken to the nth degree, where the other person is being told in no uncertain terms to change because the triggered person can't handle the situation. This may now be occurring as part of the midway point of our modern society's evolution. It does not matter where these triggered people go unless it's to their bedrooms. They will be triggered into a body state they cannot handle. We have seen this more in the past with men leaving their families because they have had more opportunity and, they're not the caregivers for the children. People have been running for hundreds of years, if not longer. You may notice, though, in Indigenous styles of living in close community in a tribal setting, it is rare to want to run from your people. Indeed, separation is used as a ritual rite of passage and also as punishment. In the modern world, we run because we can't stand the company we keep. In the Indigenous world, people don't want to run because they feel love from the community they keep. Unfortunately, the Indigenous are not being guarded from assimilating into the modern. And the modern person must already know something is wrong with their world perspective to then seek out another one. The implications of nervous system dysregulation are vast. The first I mentioned was state change. The second is running. Both are forms of relief from triggers. People in modern society have leaned on modern psychology to understand their way out of dysregulation, pharmacology to not notice or change the felt states of dysregulation, technology for deflection and distraction, and self-serving control of their environments, now commonly referred to as narcissism. I'm sure the list is longer, but these are enough to demonstrate something very important. Modern people try to solve problems from the outside of themselves. The defining nature of the word Indigenous is from within. I have learned the power of Indigenous healing, which occurs from within the person. It isn't easy, yet it is uncomplicated. It is quite the opposite of what the modern world has encouraged. Even with our plethora of modern world solutions, none have had the effect we want. We are becoming more and more dysregulated with each generation. The older members of society are left wondering why the younger members of their same society are behaving in such a weak way. They don't make them like they used to. These older members have no idea how much more the younger ones have to deal with. With each generation comes more triggers, more generationally gifted trauma, more options which don't fix in entirety, only pretending to be solutions, and more pressure to achieve the same outcomes as they grew up with, but with a lot less resources. We are now feeling the pinch in regard to where our modern society has arrived. What will be the plight of the future generations if there are no real solutions? Nervous system dysregulation is almost a birthright now, rather than the opposite. What if the ideas you hold in your mind, the hidden ones, are the key? The ones you're gifted through your DNA, the ones your parents showed you in their behaviours, their words and their reactions, the ones you can't remember because your protective mind has stopped you from remembering the details so that you don't die of a broken heart while you were an innocent and precious child. What if you could find the idea that is no longer true or needed? What if these thoughts you think subconsciously are the key? The thought protected you, it got you here to adulthood, but now it's smothering your soul. It's like a helicopter parent but it's now coming from inside of you and feels natural? What if you found a therapy which finds this and shows it to you? Would you want to leave your state-changing, addiction-encouraging, running and distracting behaviours behind? How much would it be worth to you to be free? If your answer is anything but it would be worth the world, then you need to figure out why you would not want to live a life as your true self. Hi, I'm Joanna Ruth from Tarot with JoannaRuth.Online. Hi, I'm Joanna Ruth, and this is your doorway to spiritual literacy. Why not come on in and learn some foundations together?